that's kind of the thing that I think is important, is that when you get these ideas, that it's important to follow through on them, because I don't know about you, but I know for me, when I've ignored those, it's usually cost me something. I am Gloria Grace Rand, founder of the L.O.V.E Method and author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Live, Love, Engage: How to Stop Doubting Yourself and Start Being Yourself. In this podcast, we share practical advice from a spiritual perspective on how to live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically, so you can create a life and business with more impact, influence, and income. Welcome to Live, Love, Engage. Namaste. How often do you rely on your intuition when you are making decisions in your business versus just kind of powering through and just getting stuff done, and just following through on, you got a plan, you're going to do the plan, and just ignoring those gut feelings perhaps, or other things that come up, other, divine downloads and things like that. Well, we're going to be diving into this today, and it's a topic that I love, because following intuition is something that I didn't used to do very well, but I do pay attention to it now, and I'll explain why that's important as we go on. But first, I do want to welcome those of you who may be new to the podcast. If this is your first time joining us, I want to welcome you and introduce myself. I am Gloria Grace, founder of Align to Shine Academy, and I work with spiritually minded women, helping them to really be able to step into their potential and, not let self-doubt stop you. So let's dive into intuition and talk a little bit about just what it is and why it's important. And I will just let you know that I followed my intuition today, in that I was all dressed up here to do an interview for somebody else's podcast. And they had to cancel. And I thought, well, gosh, hey, I look good. I got the makeup on. I might as well just go ahead and record my podcast today, even though I was thinking I probably wouldn't do it until tomorrow. But what the heck? And I think that's kind of the thing that I think is important, is that when you get these ideas, that it's important to follow through on them, because I don't know about you, but I know for me, when I do have, sometimes you get that feeling in your gut, or maybe it's your brain that's, you hear this little voice in your head saying, why don't you do it this way? Why don't you try it that way? And when I've ignored those, it's usually cost me something. And I remember one example, and this is going back a long time ago. I think I was driving, and actually, oh wow, I just remembered one very costly time when I was a new driver, actually, and made a turn too late and wound up hitting another car. And my mom was in the car with me at the same time, and so she was not too happy because she hit her head on the windshield. And I think it's, because I wasn't trusting myself enough then. I was, I think she was saying, well, turn or don't turn or whatever. And I didn't trust myself. And that's what it comes down to, really, is intuition is about starting to lean into your own innate inner wisdom. And with age comes wisdom, they say. And I think it also lends itself, as we get older, that we do start maybe having these incidents where we don't follow our intuition, and then we wish we had. And so then when we do get these little inklings, we start following them, and it really makes a difference. And there are, I'll give you some more examples about how this is, at least it's benefited my business, in fact. But I want to share with you a couple different ways that that intuition may apply to you, and how, because we are all wired differently, and there are different ways that you might pick up on uh, information. And so for instance, there's maybe like a clear knowing where you get a sudden insight, or a download about a business direction. A lot of times, being in the shower, you might get ideas in the shower that'll just kind of pop into your head. And for me, one of those was, one of those was where I just had this idea popped into my head that said I should write a book about love. And that wound up being my book, Live, Love, Engage. So it was, this idea that just came to me all of a sudden. And I was like, where did that come from? It was like, because my business was really online marketing at the time, as opposed to coaching that I do now. And I thought that was just kind of interesting that it sort of happened to show up like that. And I mentioned earlier, that gut feeling, so you might have actual bodily sensations where maybe get butterflies in your stomach, or maybe your heart starts to really kind of go, ooh, get really excited. And I think, I don't know if this is exactly the right example for that, but I think when I was attending a conference, and they were promoting a mastermind to join, and I started getting really excited, like this was something that I really needed to do. And so, I guess I do have bodily sensations too. So that's another one, sort of, this clear feeling. And another one is clear seeing. I mean, some people really can actually see symbols or patterns that may offer guidance. Sometimes, you might be, maybe you see some sort of like a sign, maybe a billboard outside, a couple times, and it has like the same message, you keep being aware of it. And I know it has to do with our, what is it, the reticular activating system of our brain. But still, if you're seeing that, my belief is that it's the universe trying to tell you something, and you should pay attention. And then finally, clear hearing, where you really do hear a voice inside your head, perhaps, or maybe you hear like the same song come over, the radio. I know we don't do radio too much anymore because we're listening to, streaming services, Pandora and whatnot. But perhaps, or maybe you just hear somebody say something that catches your attention, and then you hear somebody else say something again, pretty much very similar along the same lines, and you're like, what is that all about? It's your intuition. and it's a message coming to you from like I say, from your higher self, from the universe, God, whatever you believe. But I would encourage you to pay attention to that. And I know sometimes it's not always easy to pay attention to that, because sometimes we're just, we've been taught, or else, and I think, and I'm going to say this especially for in the business world, I think a lot of times we, men, no, I'm not going to generalize men. I would say the masculine way of thinking and the masculine way of acting is much more direct, and, do it and get to it and follow the plan, without leaving enough room for what the heart wants you to do. So it's really very mental, logical, what is it, right brain thinking, I think? Yeah, I think. I'm not sure. I was I get these confused which way it is. So, and I know a lot of times, even as women, we're women business owners, but we still sometimes may fall into that trap of just really wanting to just follow, the logical way of doing things, and maybe ignoring some of that innate wisdom that we have. But again, I'm not going to say all women do that. I'm not going to say all men follow that way, because there are definitely some men who follow their intuition as well, and yay for them. So what I would advise is to start start paying more attention to it, and just start sometimes being quiet. Spending time in the quiet is a way to allow yourself to start listening for that inner voice, or whatever it is, or paying attention to that gut feeling. In fact, we actually just had a recent, well, actually, I guess it was a little while ago, but check out, there was a wonderful interview I did for the podcast with Marbeth Dunn, and she talked about somatic healing. So check it out, go find it, whether you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on your favorite podcast platform. It was a few weeks back, but check it out, because she also talked about the importance of listening to our gut, and paying attention to that. So, yeah. So, like I said, some ways that you can really pay attention to this is by spending time in meditation and doing, and it's important to spend time in the quiet, and maybe it's just going for a walk. You could do that. Like to go out in nature. That's definitely another good way to do it, and just start paying attention. Start paying attention to those little clues that the universe is trying to send you. And I did want to share also, which I meant to do earlier. And again, I have a little outline I'm following, and normally I would have gotten it a bit more concrete, but like I said, I decided to follow my intuition, just go with it today. But there is actual scientific proof about how intuition can help us. And it's rooted in complex, and I'm reading here, neurological processes that occur faster than conscious thought. And the science behind intuition says that our unconscious mind processes information at a really fast speed, and it can actually influence our decisions and perceptions before we're even consciously aware. So, yeah. Okay, so it is the right hemisphere is the one that's intuition. I knew I had it backwards. See, should have followed my intuition. The left brain is the logical side. Oh, there we go. Why did I never think of that before? Left brain, logical. L. Oh my gosh, so much easier. I will never forget that again. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for that insight. And then the right brain is the creativity and intuition. And also our gut is, often called like the second brain, and that also has ways of sensing. So it says here that the amygdala, that part of our brain, can actually react to potential threats in less than 50 milliseconds. Milliseconds. And whereas conscious awareness takes like 500 to 600 milliseconds to register an experience. So we've got this, and we're all energy beings, and and again, I think it's been proven that we do have like this energy field around us. I mean, some call it the aura, but so we are picking up signals from our environment that our brain is able to process really quickly. And so it's so cool. I mean, when you think about it, that's why it's really good to start relying on your intuition. And I know also sometimes it's like, okay, well, when do I follow practical advice and when do I lean into my intuition? Both and is the answer to that. And I would say, and I'm thinking here again of, it's good to, you want to still have like, smart goals in your business. What is it? Google it, measurable, achievable, all of that good stuff. You want to have those, and you want to be flexible though, because if your intuition says maybe delay the start of that program for another week, or move it up another week and do that instead, do it now. Pay attention to those things, because it's important to start relying on it. And I think that's the thing too, is that the more you do start to rely on your intuition for guidance, still keeping in mind, the other things that you have to do in your business, monitoring everything else. But I believe it becomes stronger. It really does become stronger, and it's going to lead you in the right direction. And one other thing, and I think I've probably said this on the podcast before too, is that especially if you are someone who listens to, if you're getting hits where it is like a voice in your head, for instance, if that voice is being very critical and just saying, no, don't do this, no, 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 this is the wrong thing to do, no, 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 take that with a grain of salt, because it may be that that's more of your ego that is trying to protect you and keep you safe, which is not necessarily your higher self helping you. It is helping you in its own way. It is trying to keep you safe and protect you. However, a voice that is more encouraging and positive that comes in your head, that's more likely. No, I'm going to say no, not even more likely. That is a voice that is coming from your higher self. That is a voice that is coming from God, source, universe. So pay real close attention to that one. You can listen to the other one a little bit and say, okay, let me use some discernment and see, is this really going to serve me, or is it not? Or is it going to keep me playing small, for instance? So practice. Like anything, it just takes practice. Getting used to tuning in to your intuition. And it's a really good practice, because I tell you, two main things. Number one, if I had ignored that little voice in my head that said, you should write a book about love, I wouldn't be doing this podcast, for one thing, because it was the idea to write the book that then prompted me to say, maybe I'll do a podcast again, because I had done one years ago that was all about online marketing. And then I stopped it. And so I said, maybe doing the podcast will help me in writing the book. And if I had ignored my intuition or that voice in my head that I got during meditation, a lot of times I get my best ideas during meditation. It was to start a women's networking group, because I had belonged to one, but they stopped meeting in person. And so I was feeling quite down about that. I wanted to be able to meet with people in my area. And so this idea that said Soulful Women's Network came in my head. And I was like, ooh, that's a cool name. I like that. And I was having these ideas about how I could start this group. And so I went online. Now here's where I was doing some practical stuff. I did some research to see, okay, is anybody using the domain Soulful Women's Network? No one was. I thought, well, maybe this is a sign that I am meant to do the Soulful Women's Network. And so I went ahead and bought the domain, and then started contacting the other folks in my area who weren't able to do that other networking group. And so we started. And so now we meet every month. And I also have a free Facebook group that you can join right now. You can go to bit.ly/soul network, and that's all lowercase. I'll have it in the show notes, and you could check it out. But I've been doing that for 3 years now, I think. at least 2 years. Yeah, I think at least 2. I think we're into our 3rd year now. And it's lovely, and I love connecting with these amazing women, both in my area and those who are in other places in the country, and so it's wonderful, and I love serving and supporting them that way. So that's why I say, when you start, and that's because I had started practicing listening to my intuition, that I was able to take advantage of these ideas that come to me. So, I mean, and I've shared this on the podcast before too. It's like, that's how I wound up running a retreat a couple of years ago as well. Again, I had the idea, but then I went and sent an email and wanted to see if anybody would be interested. Okay. I had positive feedback that, yep, people were like, yeah, that sounds good. Let me know more. And then I found out when I could have it. And then just everything seemed to align perfectly, so that 3 months later, I ran a retreat, and it was amazing. So I hope you're convinced today to pay attention to your intuition and see how you can use it in your business to help you make decisions, and to be able to, balance it out a little bit between, logic, your logical brain, and your intuitive part of your brain, and see where the two can come together and create magic in your business and in your life, for that matter, as well. So I hope you have received value out of today. I hope also that you might, if you'd like daily inspiration coming into your email inbox, I offer, I do something I send out every day. I send out what I call a daily message of love and light. And you can sign up for that. Again, I love my little bit.ly stuff. You can go bit.ly/love-light-notes. And that is a capital L and then lowercase OVE, capital L-I-G-H-T, all lowercase, and capital N, notes, and then all lowercase O-T-E-S. I'll have it in the show notes. Don't worry. But yeah, and I've maybe one of these days I'll have to share some of the lovely testimonials I've received from people who love getting these notes. So I hope you'll take advantage of that. I like offering some, free things for you to pay attention with. And soon, actually, probably the next time we chat, I do have something else exciting coming up, as I am partnering with a wonderful woman who's a past podcast guest. Her name is Jennifer Regular, and we are putting together a virtual retreat, a one-day, like a 3-hour retreat, and it's going to be in April. And I will have more information about that on our next episode. I, again, decided to just follow my intuition and just go ahead and record this today. And so next time I'll plan it out a little better and I'll have that info for you, because it's going to be amazing. It's really geared for light workers in particular, to help you really align with your purpose, and so you can really chart a wonderful path forward in your business. So until we meet again, I encourage you to go out and live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically.